Tagging from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. It's been a while since we got together, but the last time we did, the Phillies were going into the series at the Mets, and I think we were kind of under the hope that they'd win at least one, maybe two. They got swept. It was probably kind of bad because this came out. We recorded it before the first game. It came out after the first game, so that probably didn't look too good. Then the Phillies lost the first game at the Nationals. Zach Wheeler got rocked in that game by the Nationals, which was ugly. And the Phillies were 7 games under 500, and it was looking pretty bad. I know we started talking about, like, is this team even going to make the playoffs? And then very next day kind of started a run for them. They won the last 2 in Washington, came home, swept the Tigers, then won 2 out of 3 at home against the Dodgers, and then so far 1-1 against the D-backs on the road. By the time you see this, the third game will have happened, so we don't know what that would have been, what the outcome is there. But they've been able to make up 6 games in a little over a week, 33-34 after being, 27 and 30, 25 and 32. Had to do the math in my head there. Yeah. So obviously a lot better recently, and June kind of seems to be their month, I guess.
Yeah. I think a big part of it, the offense has been better, but I think the pitching rotation's definitely been much better than it was early on. Walker's been really good, like sub-3 ERA in his last, 5 or 6 starts maybe. Rangers kind of back. I mean, we'll see how tonight goes.
Yeah.
So, but outside of one start, really, he's been pretty good lately. And Wheeler, outside of the Washington start, he's like, I was like looking at the numbers. He's like top 3 in the Cy Young, which is crazy because it just doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
But he's second in the National League in pitchers in terms of WAR, and second in terms of FIP behind Gallen in both of those. So, like, it doesn't seem like it because he started off kind of slow, but when it's all said and done, he will have a good chunk of Cy Young votes, whether it's first, second, or third. I think he'll probably be, I think it's fair to say that he's going to finish in the top 5 for National League Cy Young.
Yeah, a lot of that, I guess, is the fact that he's come on strong lately outside of the one start. But there's a lot of good pitchers not having good years right now. Like Alcantara down with Miami has having a bad year. Scherzer's ERA is over 4, I'm pretty sure.
So is Verlander's.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of guys having years that you would have expected. So I guess
Strider's ERA is over 4.
Yeah, he got destroyed by the Mets in his last start,
and he gave up 5 today to the Tigers.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, how much of this are we still blaming on the pitch clock? Almost halfway through the season, maybe not as much, but yeah, it's interesting to see that there's a lot of good pitchers right now, not really up to their standards. So it's a little bit of both. But I mean, even Nola is in that conversation of a guy. He can't get it right, and we're going to talk about the 5th starter is by far the biggest problem on this team. In games that was either started by Falter, who was the 5th starter, or the bullpen, which like took over for him as the 5th starter. But they're 2-10. I'm pretty sure. I think it's 2-10.
I think so. I don't even want to. I feel like wrong lumping Strom into that conversation because, like, sure, he was kind of bad the other night, but like for the first month, he was their best starter.
Mm-hmm.
But now he kind of gets thrown into that started by the bullpen category. But like, yeah, it's a disaster. And I was kind of looking into like what the internal options would be instead of watching like I the other night when it was the bullpen game and like they were down one, but as soon as I saw Dylan Covey come out and pitch a second inning, I just shut the game off. Like
Yeah.
if it's the point where Dylan Covey's pitching his second inning in any game, it's a disaster. So I was looking, and Christopher Sanchez in his last two starts combined, he's gone 12 innings and given up 3 earned runs with 8 strikeouts. That's not horrible. Griff's last start, he went 5 innings, no hits, 8 strikeouts. That's not. Before that, he was a little shaky. He was hurt for, I think he missed 1 start.
Yeah.
But, and then I think Mick's pretty far away. Like I've been pretty vocal on the past podcasts about not rushing him and screwing up the development there. But his last 2 starts, he's gone 11 innings with 3 runs. So like there are some internal options. I think the most realistic at this point, if they want to go that route, is Christopher Sanchez. But I don't know what they're waiting for as far as like, because even if Sanchez just comes up and gives up like 4 runs, it's still better than taxing your bullpen every day.
Yeah, and even if he gives up 4 runs, they probably win that game the other night.
Well, yeah,
the offense scored 8 runs. So I mean, like the offense, we've been on them a little bit before. Now, like Schwarber's hot, Castellanos is hot again, Stott's hot again, Turner's getting going. Real Muto hit the cycle for the first time since 2004 the other night. So yeah, all these guys are back. Like the offense is good enough where like you don't need like 2011 Cliff Lee. You know what I mean? Like it just has to be like even like Jeremy Hellickson-esque, I guess. You know, like something like that. Like it doesn't have to be over the top. And I was talking to my brother about Chris Sanchez because I saw him pitch when when he faced the Rockies back in April, and he was like decent. Like he did enough. He went like 5 innings, 2 runs, I think. Like that's all you really need instead of
the thing with that is it's like it can even be like 5 innings and 4 runs. The important things like at that point it's like it's the 5 innings because Monday night was it Monday? The bullpen game. The offense scored 8 runs and they got it back to a 1-run game in like the 7th or the 8th. But like they didn't bring in any of the big guys to pitch really because you already used 5 relievers before that, so you need the relievers for the rest of the series. So it's like even if the game's close, just because you use so much length out of your bullpen to get to that point, unless you have the lead, it almost seems like they're punting those games.
Yeah, it does feel that way. I think Soto has come in a few times when they've been down a couple runs, but Kimbrel doesn't get used in obviously because he's the closer, but he doesn't get used. Alvarado was hurt, but rarely used if they're down. Sir Anthony, maybe a little bit, but they do shy away from Alvarado and Kimbrel unless they have the lead, which is it's a deep bullpen in a way, but it becomes a lot less deep when a guy like Strom, who was good, that one game against the Dodgers over the weekend was kind of bad, but it
was kind of bad, but like also it's like 2 Hall of Famers took him deep. Oh well.
Yeah. So you were trusting him before that. He probably is the 5th option out there, but the problem is he's starting these games now. So when it is a 1-run game in the 7th, when you might go to your 5th option, all of a sudden you're looking at, like your 7th, 8th, like 8th option, like, and Vasquez had been pretty good until gave up that moonshot to Longoria on Monday night.
Yeah.
So
like with Sanchez, it's like, okay, you want, if you're in these bullpen games, say Strom's starting. If Sanchez gives you 4, Strom could give you the 2 innings that he, like say he gave you 2 the other night in the 1st and the 2nd. Now he's eating up the 5th and the 6th, and then you could go to the typical bullpen arms instead of having to throw out like Covey and Junior Marte, who got sent down, but still he was like kind of the bridge guy in those bullpen games. It's like you're eliminating 2 weaker links and allowing arms more flexibility and more rest in the middle of a game that you didn't have when you're starting a bullpen.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Brogdon got sent down. He had not been good to the where he was at times last year and earlier this year, but he was still like better
than Kobe.
Yeah, like better than the other options, which was weird. And is Bellotti hurt again? Where's he been?
Honestly, that's a good. Did he get sent down?
He's been quiet. I don't know. He had to get sent down because I haven't heard a word about him.
But like even last night, they brought Ortiz back up, and it's like that guy's been good this year in the spurts that we've seen him in, like just an inning eater role. Like where's he been rotting away in AAA? Well, we have to watch again. I keep bringing him up, but I'm just so sick of watching Dylan Covey pitch. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Bellotti is on the active AAA roster.
I want to say, was he Bryce? Was that the corresponding move for Bryce?
Or was it Alvy? No.
It might have been Alvarado. No, that was Brogdon.
Oh, it's Brogdon. Yeah. No,
regardless.
How long is he? I don't know how long he's been down.
I don't know. Because my big thing at the start of the year.
It might have been Covey because they were bringing him in to start that game. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was probably that. Yeah.
My thing was I wanted him to get the record for most appearances. It's like 106, and he was just pitching like every day at the start, and then he got hurt.
It was pretty comical. The first like 2 weeks, I think he pitched 10 times. Yeah. That was funny. So the big thing with this team now, 33 and 34 before Game 3 of the Diamondback series, which, as I said, you'll see this after that game, is the home and away splits. And I find this funny because in between our last episode and this one, the whole thing came out about how the pitch clock is faster in Philadelphia somehow. Like there's a lot more violations there. The Phillies are saying that it's quicker. Aaron Nola said something, it's like bothering him or whatever. And I'm like, why are you complaining? Because you're 19 and 11 at home, and then we're 14 and 23 on the road. So can we not complain about this? Because clearly it's affecting the other team worse than you guys. So can we not make it an issue? Is kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out too, because I could be wrong, but I swear last year they were better on the road than they were at home. And it was like, okay, like I know this is so far away, but like it was like, okay, like if we get into the playoffs, we'll be the 6th seed. Like majority of the games will be on the road. Like, and obviously the environment at home in the playoffs last year was absurd, and they went pretty much undefeated at home.
Yeah.
But like, it's just I'm not used to them being good at home. Like, not frankly over take away like last year. I'm not used to them being good, but like the 1 year that they were good recently, like they weren't good at home. So now it's like so weird to see them.
Right.
And a lot of it might be every game is pretty much sold out now. Like they got everybody to buy back in, and the environment is always good now as opposed to just the playoffs last year. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I'm not sure why you'd complain when you're playing so well at home.
Yeah, I kind of hope that goes away because there's a lot of home games left, and that's kind of the positive. So I saw a tweet and I was surprised by this. This is the road trip they're on right now, the Diamondbacks and the Athletics, is their longest remaining road trip, and it's 7 games. They don't have a road trip of over 6 games the rest of the way, which seems crazy to think about. And you look back, like you just mentioned, they were better on the road last year. Like the end of the season, the final 10 or whatever games.
They went on like a 20-day road trip.
Yeah, and then the start of the playoffs, they weren't home for 24 days or something like that. So now they're going to be spending a lot more time home. But yeah, the thing is, they've already played 37 road games, and that'll get to 42 by the end of this road trip. And
that's over half of them.
Yeah, and they've only played 30 home games.
Yeah, wow.
So they have 52 home games left. And
I mean, with the splits, that bodes well for the
51,
rest of the way.
Yeah.
That definitely bodes well for their comfort level, at least what they've shown for the first third of the season, what their comfort level is.
Yeah. So that, to me, that's big, that the majority of the games from after this road trip are going to be at home. The Athletics all of a sudden have won 7 games in a row, right as the Phillies are about to go in there. So that's either going to be a good thing because they're either going to cool off or they're somehow going to keep this going. I don't know what, but
I watched the game last night just because I was interested to see what the whole like reverse boycott thing, and it was like
yeah,
so obvious they were gonna win just because
right.
like duh. But like I'm trying to spin zone it as they're bound to like they're the A's. They have like a minus 200 run differential. Like there's no shot they win by the time that series. It'll be what like 10 or tomorrow or Friday. It'll be their 10th win in a row if it gets to that point. Like
I think so,
the
yeah.
A's won't do that.
Right.
So like either they sweep the Rays, which would be a crazy thought in itself, and then they cool off for us, or they cool off going into the series. I don't know. Just win. And if they somehow lose that series, nobody better panic. Like the Braves lost a series to them. The Rays have now lost a series to them. The Brewers got swept at home. It's like weird things happen. It's the point of baseball. Like you lose at best 60 games a year.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be nice to obviously get those games because
if
you're playing with how bad they are, with how bad they are on the road, if you're playing bad teams on the like you're getting lucky. Like this is a crossover series with an AL team, so it's not being returned back home. You're kind of getting lucky that you're playing a really bad team on the road when you play bad on the road, so you have to win those games. I feel like, but yeah, it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, you are kind of getting a little lucky here.
Yeah, with that, it's not the end of the world. But with that being said, like just win the series. It's not. All of their pitchers have an ERA over like 8, and they started an opener last night, and his ERA was 11. It's like just win, especially with how the offense is going right now. Like just out hit them.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about with the offense, but the interesting thing to me is that Nick Castellanos played in 36 games last year. So tonight's game will be his 68th game of the year, which would be the halfway point of the amount of games he played in last year. And last year he had 27 doubles. This year he has 23. Last year he had no triples. This year he has 1. Last year he had 13 home runs. This year he has 8. Last year he had 62 RBIs. This year he has 41. Last year he had 29 walks. This year he has 20. So halfway through the year, he's almost matching his numbers from last year.
I saw this tweet like so long ago, like maybe like September or October of last year. But like, and I'll be the first to admit, like I was very critical of Nick last year. Like I was pissed off watching him, and like the at bats were just lazy, and the playoffs, the defense was fun. But like if he literally just hit above 200, we probably have a World Series. But like I think he was hurt like the entirety of the season, because I saw this tweet and it said going into a Mets series in May, he was hitting 314 or whatever, and he got hit in the hand by a pitch. And from that point on, he hit like 200.
Yeah.
And it just like tanked his season. All of the power and the doubles that he had went away. And it was just, and then the back acted up in August and he was hurt but played through it. Like, I give him credit because he tried to play through injuries, especially after Bryce went down, thinking, but at the same time, it's like at some point you got to step back and realize that you're doing more harm than good. But yeah, this year he's just healthy, completely different guy, seems more comfortable, seems locked in on defense. And I think overall, him being locked in on defense translates to offense, and he's just completely dialed in on both sides.
Yeah, he is. And yeah, that whole hit on the hand thing was talked about a lot last year. I saw tweets, people brought that up. And, the way he's playing right now, it looks exactly like he played in 2021 with the Reds. So you cannot tell me that there wasn't some other factor going on last year where this guy's just in the prime of his career, then all of a sudden falls off the cliff and then is back in the prime of his career. It was clearly something physical. Maybe he's mentioned there was a mental aspect to it too, moving cities and, the pressure on him with the big contract and moving his family and stuff. I get that. So he's back. I really don't think there's anything you have to worry about. It should be an all-star. He's 9th right now in all-star voting for outfielders, I think the top 6 are automatically in or something like that. So
I think for outfielders, it's top 6. And you say like he's back, and people are like, oh well, he had 35 home runs in Cincinnati. It's like he was never really like the slug was always high. He was never like a home run. Like he's never going to give you 40 home runs. Like he's always been doubles machine. Like he had what the year when he bounced around and ended up with the Cubs, he had what like
58
60 doubles.
58.
Like it was crazy. Like he just hits doubles like at ease. So he's never the home run guy. Like I think his home run pace now is exactly what you should expect from him. And
20,
I think it's I think it's fair to say the doubles pace, second in the National League in doubles behind Freeman, is exactly what you should expect.
Yeah, when they signed him, coming from Cincinnati, which is somehow more of a hitter's ballpark than Citizens Bank Park, like obviously his home run numbers were going to go up. And the pitching in the NL Central outside of the Brewers isn't nearly what it is in the NL East when you talk about the 2 guys up in New York who we were talking about. Obviously, the Marlins got some arms, the Strider and those guys on the Braves.
Dude, and it's like the Nationals have Gray and Gore.
Yeah.
It's like two young studs.
Yeah. So, there is a little less production when you join the NL East with all the crazy pitching that's in there. So it is understandable. The home runs were never the thing for me. I think between Schwarber, obviously Hoskins, if he was healthy, and Harper, who, I don't know, feels like he should have 10 home runs right now. And he has 3, but you feel like you had enough home run power elsewhere where if Castellanos hit 50 doubles a year and hit 300, you were totally fine with it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So there's then Trey Turner, who is up to 249. This is another thing that came out recently. He told Kevin Long he hasn't been comfortable at the plate since 2021. Long and the analytics guys took a look at his swing. They implemented some different things, and he's hitting 308 in the last 7 games, and his power's starting to uptick a little bit. He had a 2-homer game. Was that last weekend against the Dodgers? Yeah. Or is that the Tigers? I am
Tigers.
Tigers.
First game of the Tigers series.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. For some reason, that whole home stand is like blended together for me.
Yeah.
So starting to show some power. And the thing I liked, I told you last night was my favorite Trey Turner game because he walked twice and then he stole second base both times. And to me, if he can walk, those walks turn into like two base walks. Because if he's just going to start stealing, then a lot of good's going to happen. So I'm happy with how he's played recently. The mental errors in the field have also dropped considerably, it looks like. So I think him being more comfortable at the plate is leading him being more comfortable on the base paths and in the field.
Yeah. My first thought, kind of unrelated to his play, but like when I read that article about not being comfortable since like 2020, explain the World Baseball Classic then. Like that didn't make sense to me. But fast forwarding to now, I think the biggest difference that I've noticed with him the last week and a half, 2 weeks is like the first month or 2, he was pulling off everything on the outside corner. He was just flailing at it and early. And like last night, he had 2 hits, and the first one was a line drive right over the second baseman. Like he's starting to go to right center. And we always talked about it with Reese. Like he's at his best when he's letting it get deep and going to right field. And then that's when the poolside homers come. Like we're starting to see that with Turner. He's going the other way. He's hanging in on off-speed pitches more. And granted, like the walks last night, those first 2 at-bats with the walks, like the 8 ball, like they weren't even competitive. Like he didn't really have to think. But like sometimes that's what you need to get into a rhythm of seeing the strike zone and being able to like know what pitches you want to go after. Just getting on a rhythm and kind of commanding the zone, even if they're not close, to get you back into the swing mode of where you can go to all 3 fields.
Yeah, and the thing with Turner is I didn't realize this. They were talking about how Realmuto hit this for the cycle the other night. Obviously, Trey Turner's had 3 cycles in between the 2 times the Phillies as an organization had a cycle.
Yeah,
which is just crazy. Like there's so much. This guy's such a dynamic hitter because of how fast he is, and a fact. Now, shortstops nowadays have a little more power than in the past. Like guys like Correa and Bogarts will hit 20 plus home runs, but just having that kind of power and speed from the shortstop position just is so valuable. And you understand why they gave him all the money and years they gave him.
Yeah, and it's like he's in a tough spot because coming off of the playoffs last year, it's like, oh, we're shortstop, like we're one piece away. Add this guy, and we're gonna win the World Series. Now it's like people forget Harper struggled his first year, Castellanos struggled his first year, like we talked about. It's like it's so tough to just plug and play. Like even look like Verlander off the Cy Young Award last year is having a brutal start to a season. It's like it is tough to adapt to an environment. And granted, he's familiar with the NL East and everything, but like he didn't live in Philly. He didn't play here 81 times. It's like it's a different environment and it takes time to adapt.
Yeah, it does. And so the last guy I want to talk about offense-wise is Bryce Harper, who's been back for over a month now, 36 games, hitting 299, which to me, it doesn't feel like he is. I don't know, but
he just dumps in these ninth inning singles, it seems, and it's like they boosted a bit.
Yeah, the thing is, so 10 doubles in 36 games is pretty good. That's a pretty good number. Only 3 home runs, though, and 15 RBIs. And his OPS is still 836. But he's had, I know in the last homestand, he had like 4 balls die at the warning track. And
yeah,
I know like this was not something that I saw brought up by anybody with any kind of knowledge or anything, but it was always in like the comments of tweets about Bryce Harper, like from just random people. And they were like, well, he hasn't been able to like work out with that arm in 6 months or however long it is. Like, do you think he's lost some power? And is that a real thing? Like, did he lose a little power from not being able to lift or anything? Are these people crazy? Because I mean, to me, like the number kind of translates to that with only 3 home runs in 36 games, and we're talking about a guy who averages like 31 a year.
You know, now like I've never, not once did that thought cross my mind, but it's actually like it seems like it'd be a valid point. Like first of all, with Bryce, I saw a picture of him like dapping up Hurts before the one game that they were there in the homestand, and I am now like terrified to watch him play just because his arm looked horrible without like the brace or sleeve on or anything. And then like that night or the next night, he flies out to the warning track and he's like using the brick dugout wall as a punching bag. I'm like, dude, relax. Like, just, I don't know, do something else. Right. Use your left arm or something. But yeah, I don't know. Like, you'd think with how violent his swing is and with how strong his lower body is, like, that wouldn't play a factor. But at the same time, it's like, if it's somewhat windy, like, and you're not able to work out your arm for 9 months or 6 months, whatever it's been, like, you're not going to cut through the wind as well as you would have in the past. So that's actually like, I don't know if it's the entire story, but there might be some traction to that and maybe like a small factor. But I don't know. My thought on him is let Schwarber handle June and just focus on your swing. And as long as the offense keeps going like that, like once July, August come around, like just trade places with Schwarber, lefty power, and the rest of the offense stays the same, and it's like they don't miss a beat.
Yeah, that would ideally be the case.
Because I mean, they have 46 hits in their last 3 games, and like Harper's hitting, but like once he gets going with how that offense is, 46 hits, and whether it's like 1, 2, 3 in front of him, but even like 8, 9 wrapping around, it's like if he gets the opportunity with guys on, like 3 or 4 guys on in front of him throughout the course of a game, like he's going to start doing damage. And like he's been struggling with runners in scoring positions. That trend obviously won't keep up, and lefties are kind of just like sliding him to death. So as he starts to get his timing back, I think we're going to start to see the offense take like an even bigger jump.
Yeah, it's gonna come eventually. I feel like I can't see him staying the way he is right now. Still second in All-Star votes for DHs though, which is which is impressive. But I mean, look, he's a guy who deserves nods for the All-Star game. Just the way it is.
I saw He like still technically doesn't have an All-Star game for us
Yeah, because
because
he didn't
last
go.
year he was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, the COVID year, no one was an all-star, which I don't know why
Right.
they still didn't like have all-star teams for that and just make it
But like,
some honorary thing. But and the year you won MVP, he wasn't an all-star,
yeah,
which
like
is
how
funny.
he has in this 5 years with us, he has an MVP in one asterisk All-Star game that he couldn't go to.
Yeah, that's
Like,
why
that's
I do want to get him
crazy.
there. But
Yeah, oh, definitely. But still, it's so funny to me.
yeah, it is funny. It's a little weird though. Moving on, the wild card. So I think we're under the belief here that it would take an absolute miracle to win this division.
Yeah.
It like a lot bad needs to happen with the Braves. I feel like a lot. That's just not going to happen. So kind of looking at the wild card, they're 2.5 games out of the wild card right now because the Giants just keep beating the Cardinals. The Cardinals actually have the worst record in the National League.
We killed them.
Yeah. They have not been the same since the Phillies beat them in the playoffs last year. Not even close. Yeah, they have a worse record than the Nationals, which is crazy considering.
Dude, the only two teams worse than them are the A's and the Royals.
Yeah, it's shockingly bad. I watched the end of their game today. Actually, they were up 5-3 in the ninth with 2 outs and 2 strikes and a runner on, and I turned it off because I thought it was going to be over. And I was going through the channels like 10 minutes later, and I swing back to find something to watch. I'm like, I'll just go back to the MLB Network. And the game was still going on. I was like, what? They gave up a home run. Yeah.
They were a pick'em at the start of the year to win 90 games. It's like even odds to win 90 games, and they are 27 and like 45.
Well, they were like the sexy like World Series pick this year too. Like
Yeah.
if you were like trying to fade the
their
Braves,
lineup's better than ours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That nonsense. Yeah. What a joke that was. But yeah, so I think they're gone. I don't think the Cardinals.
Even with how bad the division is, I think they're cooked.
Yeah. So the winner or the leader of the NL Central is the Pirates somehow still at 34-31.
They'd have to play 750 the rest of the way to win that division.
Yeah, even if the Pirates play 500 or like even like 475 ball, like like they could finish 3 games under, and the Cardinals still have to be like 20 games over somehow. So
yeah,
it just doesn't seem likely at this point. So yeah, they're going to be in this whole Diamondbacks thing where they're leading the NL West somehow. They have the offense to continue this, but outside of Gallen, and I'm going to say
who's been getting rocked lately.
Yeah, and I'm going to say Merrill Kelly because I don't want to jinx anything for tonight as the Phillies face him. Their pitching isn't very good. So I just don't know how they're going to sustain this so much longer. Obviously, Corbin Carroll's like insane carrying them. I just don't know how much, like, if they're going to keep this up. We'll see. They kind of give off like 2018 Phillies vibes, but
I think they're better than that just because they have the star power. Like the Phillies didn't have a Corbin Carroll guy. We had Rhys Hoskins leading us. But like Mad Bum really screwed them because like he was supposed to be like their kind of number 3, and it's like you're not expecting him to do like absurd numbers, but at the same time you're expecting them to eat innings, you're expecting them to keep you in games, and he made 4 starts with them. So then they start bringing up all these prospects, and not to say they've been bad, but like they haven't particularly been good, and you're now forced to have them in the rotation, and they've not lost value because like obviously after 8 starts you don't lose value as a prospect, but at the same time it's like we've seen them pitch against major league hitters. Their trade deadline value might not be as high as it could have been watching them pitch to a 3 ERA in AAA or whatever, and you're kind of hindering their development by just having them go out and have 6 ERAs. Like we saw it in Baltimore, like Grayson Rodriguez did that and got sent back down because it just wasn't working for a competing team. And now the Diamondbacks have been able to sustain it, but again, like how long does that last? And their bullpen's not great outside of Andrew Chafin. So like you're losing trade deadline pieces that you can sturdy up your bullpen or even sturdy up your rotation because you're forced to have these guys pitch for you. You can't go 2 for 1 because then you only have 4 starters.
Yeah. So we'll see at the Diamondbacks. The Marlins are the second wild card at 37 and 31 because Luis Ariz is hitting like 450 or some crap like that right now. With that, they still have a negative run differential, I think. It's worse than ours and worse than the Mets. They are minus 33 in run differential.
Their thing is they're like, obviously huge exaggeration. They're like 20-1 in 1-run games. Like
I can actually let me look that up.
They just pull these, like, when it gets to a 1-run game, like their bullpen comes in and like AJ Puck is pretty much nails. Like the rest of their bullpen's pretty much nails, and then they get like one guy on second, and Luis Ariz just hits like a 80-mile-an-hour humpback liner over the shortstop, and they win. And then that's that.
Yeah, they're 17 and 5 in 1-run
games.
Like whereas even a team like the Braves is 12 and 8 in those games.
That 17 and 5 is an absurd clip to win 1-run games at.
Yeah,
like that is insane.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I also felt like they've been a little fortunate with who they've played. They played the Royals, I think. They played the A's. They played the Nats a lot. They played the Cubs, I think.
I mean, we played them one series and did we win that series?
They beat they beat us 2-1 in that series.
Oh, I knew we killed Sandy, but
and then
everybody killed Sandy.
Yeah, then we lost the other two. But yeah, their schedule gets a lot harder.
It's the same Marlins team every year. It's like their pitching's good, like really good, and it's young. But then like their lineup's so streaky, but they just added Luis Ariz to kind of just like steady the top of the order and to score enough runs. And like Jorge Soler's like second or third, and like he's like tied for Schwarber with home runs. So like they're getting the power that they never had. Brian De La Cruz is finally hitting like 300, which they've been waiting on for 2 or 3 years now. So like they're starting to get their streaky guys going. Does that mean that they'll keep it up all year? I don't know. Like those guys have never shown a track record of sustaining it when they get hot. So we'll see if that means they got it all out in the first half and they cool out. But I don't know. I don't expect them. I expect them to kind of come back to earth and probably finish around 500 or a game or two over. Like I don't expect them to win a wild card spot, but they're definitely better than people anticipated.
Yeah, for sure. And then the final wild card team right now is the Giants at 36 and 32. The Phillies are indirectly the reason for this. The Giants were really bad, and then they swept the Phillies, and they've been on a run ever since. I think they were like 6 games under 500 when that series started, and now they're 4 over. The Phillies have indirectly caused this. So yeah, we'll see with them. Their offense, though, it's like I don't know how they
bad.
I don't know. They just put up. It's like Moneyball.
They're like the Marlins.
Get on base, yeah.
Minus, I mean, it's weird to say that the Marlins have more star power on offense than them, which you never say about the Marlins ever. But that's the way it is this year.
Yeah. I did not have the Padres in 4th place in the NL West in the middle of June, but here we are. They're 32 and 34. So this is where it gets interesting because you have these teams like the Pirates, the Marlins, and the Giants taking up playoff spots, teams that you didn't really think were going to be up there. And then you have, I'm not counting the Cardinals, you have the Mets and the Padres lurking behind the Phillies. So it's kind of, you're trying to catch these other teams. And at the same time, there's really talented teams behind you that could creep up too. So they're kind of in an awkward spot right now. I know it's only the middle of June, but it's kind of interesting to look at this.
Yeah, here's my thing with the Mets. I've watched like a not a decent amount of their games, but like a few of their games, and like they're not good. And especially with like Alonso hurt, like their offense is pretty bad. Like Lindor's been really bad. But like I just know how it goes. Like the Phillies play well for the next week, like split with Arizona, win in Oakland, whatever, and then like do whatever they normally do with the Braves, like split or play 3 competitive games or 4 competitive games next week. And then the Mets just come in and they're struggling and they're like 5 games under and they just sweep us at home. And because for some reason we just can't beat the Mets, no matter how bad they look. And that's what gets the Mets going.
We can't beat Mark Canha ever.
Yeah, literally.
I say this all the time. Now he's on the Nationals now. I say Dom Smith is only still in the majors because of the Phillies.
Yeah, and I mean, the most obvious thing ever was Michael Conforto hitting like 800 in that Giants series.
Yeah, I don't know what it because the Mets did not look good in that series against the Phillies.
No,
they didn't score more than 4 runs in any of the games. The Phillies' offense was so ice.
4 runs in the series.
The Phillies' offense was so like all 3 of those games were gettable, and it's just the offense was so ice cold for some reason. I don't know what it is. They don't win in Citi Field. They rarely beat the Mets. It's something that has to turn around this year if they're going to make the playoffs because you and the Mets are also competing for, I don't want to say final wild card spot.
I mean, they're 4 games back.
Yeah, I think 2 games are open. 2 spots are open in the wild card, really.
Definitely.
But you're fighting with this team for this last year. You weren't really fighting with them. They were way ahead of you. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're fighting with them for that spot. So beating them is a lot more important than it was last year.
Well, last year the big thing was the Phillies beat the bad teams, and like this year I'll say this: like you have to beat the bad teams. Now, are the Mets a bad team? I don't particularly think so. Like their roster is the highest payroll in the history of North American sports, but it's like their record indicates they're bad, so you have to beat them if you want to get in the playoffs. It's the same thing that happened last year, and so far I think they've done an okay job. They kind of salvaged DC. They beat up on the Tigers, but like you can't get swept in San Francisco. You have to at least win the series in Oakland this week. Like, and then when the Mets come to town next weekend, like you have to handle business at home.
Yeah, they do. And just talking through these series and stuff kind of has me thinking the Phillies have been pretty good outside of like 3 series.
Yeah.
The opening series against the Rangers,
who are like the best team in the best offense since like the 1930s. So like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay. That series against the Giants, and then a couple weeks ago against the Mets. They're 0-9 in those games, so they're 8 games over everywhere else on the schedule. It's just they've had 3 really bad series, and it's put them in this spot.
And the problem is 2 of those series were against teams with losing records or records close to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just can't happen.
Yeah, and in your league that you're competing with wildcard spots for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so road ahead here, kind of discussed it. 2 more in Arizona. It'll be 1 more by the time you see this. 3 in Oakland, 2. We'll see if they're still good or not. Off day. And then really, really interesting homestand. 3 against Atlanta, 3 against the Mets. You got to find a way to go 4-2 in those games. I really don't care. You have to.
Yeah, and with the Mets series, this is nothing to do with the games really, but like, can John Middleton like grow up with the Mets overgrown student section throwing out the first pitch again? Like, can we stop doing that? I don't care how many tickets they buy, like, and I don't care if you put the ban on Mets gear. Like, can we actually act like we're the home team when the Mets come to town for once?
Yeah, I kind of thought this BS would have stopped after you made the World Series. But I guess like, not.
Dude, with the 200% increase or whatever it was in season tickets, like I think you got your money.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I like a lot of things John Middleton does,
especially lately. Like I was a big critic of him early, within like the last 5 years, and the last 2 or 3 years, I think he's done a really good job, kind of dating back to opening the checkbook for Wheeler. Mm-hmm. But like, at some point we have to act like an organization whose like he says that he's been like a fan his whole life and that's why he's wanted to own the team. Well, then don't let the division rival who we despise throw out the first pitch. It's not that difficult.
Exactly. So yeah, that I don't know. It's annoying. That needs to stop. And the Phillies need to beat them when they come to town this week. Next week.
That just makes it worse. Like this, I think like last year they let them throw out the first pitch in Citizens Bank Park, and then we like got swept on a game where we pitched a guy in like what was his name? The Sear that came up and pitched. And like he literally threw like one pitch and it was a home run in like the 9th inning. And it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. 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 So there's that. That's gonna be a tough homestand. The only good thing is it's home. It's home. They're playing a lot better at home. We're not gonna look up beyond that because I'm sure we'll talk by the end of that. But that's gonna do it for this one. We'll see if the Phillies are over 500 next time we talk. I think it's gonna be close, and they kind of need to be. I think they got to go into July at least 500. So we'll see.